Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are reading from the book Meditation and Spiritual Life by Swami Yatiswarananda. We are in chapter 23 titled Mystic Worship, and we are about to begin the section The Body as a Temple of God. The body of ours is a temple of the divine, says one of the minor Upanishads. This is from the Maitreyi Upanishad, Mantra 2.1, Deho Devalayah. Deho Devalayah. The Kathopanishad expresses this idea by means of a charming simile. Know the self within you to be the master of the chariot, and the body to be the chariot. So this is from the Kathopanishad, Mantra 1.3.3. Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi Shariram Rathameva tu. Instead of worshipping God in the elements like fire and water, in plants and animals, or in images of clay, stone, and metal, we may worship Him in the image of the human body, regarding it as a temple or a chariot, or a house of the divine, which dwells and shines in the hearts of us all. Through the worship of the all-pervading God in the microcosm, we come to realize Him also in the microcosm being a miniature of the macrocosm. But if, instead of the divine principle, the symbol or form or personality becomes more important, then the worship loses all its spiritual value. So it is necessary that, in order to profit by our worship and prayer, we cultivate the right mood and attitude, without which spiritual progress is not possible at all. But how is the right mood to be created? The tantric books have laid down that this can be done by controlling the lower planes of thinking through a graded realization of the spiritual possibilities in us. The different planes of thinking associated with the 6 yogic centers of the spinal cord and the 7th in the brain may be likened to the different stories of a building connected by a staircase. The centers are like points of contact between ourselves and various planes of consciousness. The path of spiritual practice, in which consciousness is made to rise from one center to another, up to the highest plane, is a most difficult one. But every aspirant who wants to follow the path of meditation should try to raise the quote focus of will unquote, or the center of consciousness, at least to the center in the region of the heart. This center may be likened also to an inner space. Some find it easier to make the heart and some the forehead the center of their consciousness. Those who are not drawn towards any particular symbol or image may meditate in some higher center or plane of consciousness on the divine light that permeates not only one's own being, but the whole universe of men and things. However, the aspirant who cannot do without a form may carry on meditation on a luminous form, which will ultimately lead to meditation on the formless luminosity, the light of the Spirit that illumines all things. The soul is covered with a causal body, which is often called Karana Sharira, which in turn is covered by a mental body, Sukshma Sharira, and then by a physical body, Sthula Sharira. All these 3 bodies, causal, mental, physical, are tainted. The causal body is tainted by primordial ignorance, also called avidya. The mental body is tainted by our tendencies and emotions. The physical body, as well as the mental body, is tainted by the inharmonious ego with its selfish desires. A disharmonious ego makes the mind sick. A sick mind affects the senses, and both together disturb the functioning of the body, a fact which is being proved every day by contemporary psychology. However, there is a cure for this disharmony. Take them all, gross and subtle bodies together, to the source from which they came. We forget the supreme fact that we live in God and God lives in us. All things, including ourselves, are to be connected with the divine principle. We know very little about ourselves or how our senses work. For instance, on the lowest plane of living, we are identified with our physical senses. But as we become more spiritually aware, our higher centers of consciousness are strengthened so that they can control the lower centers. There are various centers of consciousness, and through meditation, one proceeds from the lower to the higher ones until the individual soul is united with the oversoul. It takes much practice, but slowly the consciousness is lifted upward. By keeping the channels clear and by an effort of the will, the level of consciousness is raised until we have a glimpse of the highest reality, when for a moment we become inseparable from the Supreme Spirit. We know then that there is something of the Divine Spirit immanent in us. If we can feel the constant presence of the Spirit, both within and without us, we shall become charged with a new energy. There will be changes in the quality of our living and our service. Our attitude, both towards others and towards ourselves, will be different. Very few of us can attain to the superconscious state in this manner by sheer exercise of the will, and thus get rid of the ego or go beyond the senses. But the realization of immanence we can attain through japa and meditation. Next section, japa, the best form of mystic worship. Worship is done in three forms: physical, verbal, and mental, also referred to as kaika, vachika, and manasa. That is external worship, praise and prayer, and meditation. Of these, the first one, consisting of rituals and ceremonies, according to scriptural injunctions, has almost fallen out of use in the life of an average individual, and this is mainly due to the stress of social life, absence of leisure, and other inconveniences in modern life. Noticing the tendency of this age, the authors of Puranas have laid great emphasis on verbal and mental worship, and of these again, particularly on verbal worship. Verbal worship may mean reciting only one name or many names and attributes of the divine. The former is called japa, one name, and the latter stotra or kirtana, many names or attributes. But generally the two are bracketed together. The seeker after truth, says Manu, reaches the highest goal by japa alone. This is from the Manusmriti 2.87. And japa, declares the Mahabharata, is said to be the best of all spiritual practices. In fact, in chapter 10, which is Vibhuti Yoga, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, Yajnanai japa yajñosmi. Basically, he's saying among all the yajnas, he is japa. The Bhagavatam supports this view wholeheartedly when it observes that which one obtained through meditation in Satya Yuga, through sacrifice in Treta Yuga, through worship in Dwapara Yuga, may be attained in Kali Yuga by reciting the names of the Lord. So this is from the Bhagavatam, mantra or verse, shloka 12.3.52. Krite yadhyayato vishnuhu tretayam yajato mukhaihi dvapare paricharyayam kalau tadhari kirtanam tadhari kirtanat. And this recitation or japa implies also dwelling on the divine attributes. This means that along with the repetition of the name, the aspirant should either visualize a holy form, usually a form of his favorite deity called his Ishta Devata or chosen idol, or think about the divine qualities like love, compassion, power, purity, etc. of the Godhead. The vast majority of the aspirants find it easier to visualize the form of the chosen idol. Visualization bhavana, which means calling up the image of the deity with love and reference, is itself a higher form of mental worship, manasa puja. Along with japa, It is the most popular mode of mystic worship in folk today. Visualization plays a very important part in the spiritual life of the beginner. Japa and visualization must go in hand. The holy form must be visualized as luminous and blissful and living and real. Think of your body as luminous and then install the luminous form of your chosen ideal in the luminous center at the region of the heart. Here are given the steps for this kind of visualization. Immediately after having sat down in a proper posture, let the devotee say with folded palms, whether impure or pure, under all conditions, whoever remembers the Lord becomes purified inwardly and outwardly. Appavitrah pavitro va sarvavasthangatoppi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sah bahyabhyantarashuchihi. And let him feel purity in his body and mind. Let the devotee say with folded palms, whether impure, under all conditions, whoever remembers the Lord becomes purified inwardly and outwardly, and let him feel purity in his body and mind. He may next imagine that the individual soul is rising from the lower centers of the body to the center in the head and is getting united with the light of the universal spirit there. Let him further imagine that both the gross and subtle bodies with all objects and images have merged in the light of the Absolute, which alone now shines everywhere, inside and outside. Most of the people cannot remain in this state for long. Next, let the devotee feel his center of consciousness in the region of the heart, and let him visualize that in that center there has emerged out of the ocean of light the effulgent divine form of his chosen ideal, and also the worshipper's spiritualized form freed of impurities. Let the aspirant, identifying himself with the new subtle spiritual body, worship and meditate on the chosen ideal along with the repetition of the divine name for some time. Let him not lose sight of the formless, which supports and permeates both the holy form and also his own new spiritual body. Finally, let the devotee surrender his all to the divine, uttering the following prayer. Being subject to the impulses of the vital energy, the intellect and the body, whatever sin has been committed by me in the states of waking dream and deep sleep, in thought, word and deed, by means of the different organs, may all these be offered to Brahman. This is a free translation of Itah Purvam Prana Buddhi Deha Dharmadhik Karato Jagrat Swapna Sushuptyavastasu Manasa Vacha Hastabhyam Padbhyam Udarena Shishna Yatkritam Yaduktam Yasmritam Tatsarvam Brahmarpanam Bhavatu Swaha. Even after finishing japa and meditation the above mentioned way, let the devotee hold on to a center of consciousness, always trying to remain in that elevated mood. Every aspirant must have three things: a definite center of consciousness, a definite name mantra, and a holy form. To be effective, visualization and japa must be done with great intensity. As in material affairs, so also in spiritual matters, we should be perfectly clear and definite in our thought and action. Some people do not seem to like all these rigid rules and procedure in the beginning. And methods of meditation. Usually such a dislike is a sign of inner restlessness and rebellion. Without a certain definite set of rules and procedure in the beginning, no one can proceed in spiritual life. I have seen people practicing figure skating before they set out for the more dangerous sport of free skating on ice. So also in spiritual life, one should first start with fixed rules of meditation. Later on, one may go beyond such rules. We'll pause here and next time we'll start with the section Need for a Holy Personality. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.